What is going on? It's Alex coming back at you with another video, and today I am bringing you the top 32 wide receivers in the 2025 NFL Draft. If you are new, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. You guys know how to use YouTube. These are the 32 receivers that have full all 22 grades. I'm going to be breaking down every single one with a full game of tape. Basically, you're going to be sitting here listening to these notes and imagining that you're watching the game with me. It is sequential. It's not going to be some overall notes, so I hope you guys do enjoy it. Of course, I do this for all the positions, and we got the combine coming up, so some cool numbers are going to be tweaked on this, but I am super duper excited. Of course, before we dive into how I grade or grading the players, probably should know what my scale is. And it's out of 100, but also I divide those numbers up because 80 out of 100, who gives a shit if you don't understand the actual context, which I'm talking about. And so I have it in different tiers based on differing point groups. So tier 1 is those wide receiver ones, somebody who I think could genuinely be, like, regardless of system, primarily somebody 80 plus is the grading system. Someone who I really think has the talent to be almost like a blue chip player, but someone who genuinely doesn't really have very many limitations. It's going to be very hard to grade as a wide receiver 1 and 80 plus if you have to be limited in your role. Maybe you just have to be super damn good to do that. But so far, I haven't run into that just yet. That tier 2 is 75 up to 80. That's wide receiver 2 tier. And, well, actually, no, I lied. Wide receiver 1 technically does have a little bit of a balance into the 70s. Wide receiver 2, that is going to be also that 75 to 70 territory. And with that, I think that in the right system, you have the ability to be flexed up to a wide receiver 1 if need be, but you probably don't solve the overall issue. And, maybe not the overall issue, but maybe you might be looking for some extra firepower. Not that, any team will be happy with just a wide receiver 1. Of course, you want a billion wide receiver 1s, but at the same time, these guys are probably going to be a little more scheme specific if they're going to be a guaranteed wide receiver 1. But of course, just like every single player, wherever you go matters arguably more than even your talent level at a certain point. That tier 3, which is going to be that 65 up to that 70 range, those are going to be my flex guys. Those are the guys who will be developmental going into particular roles and, maybe not being able to get the amount of reps that, we might want early on, but could absolutely develop in the right system. And that tier 4 are the developmental guys. Now, there are certain players, we'll talk about Savion Williams very soon, but I think that for him, like, if he goes to the perfect system, he's going to do very well. But these are very role-specific players that have legitimate weaknesses to their game. So, how I also grade the players out of 100 are listed here. Hard cut, change of direction, stop routes, out routes, comeback routes. I think those are all very crucial to separate from the 45-degree cuts. A lot of guys can flip their hips on slants and posts and corners, but they can't really drop their hips and be able to hit the hard stop. Now, then we have the run after the catch ability. This is not based off of missed tackles. It really is based on my eyes. Of course, usually missed tackles end up leading to being a good indicator of the two. But then you got separation as well. I also think that certain guys thrive with physicality. Maybe they're not the best route runner. Maybe they're not fastest guy in the world, but they end up getting separation because they can use physicality, they can use leverage, or maybe the speed guys, they don't run routes as well, but they generate separation with their speed. So it works hand in hand and allows everybody to have the prime opportunity to get what they need. Hands, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. How reliable are your hands? Now, some guys, I've been very close to the drop rate, like in terms of averaging out for guys who've played multiple years, but there are players where they might have like a 5% drop rate, but I just see them double catching a lot, and so their grades will be reflective of that. Release package. This counts for both upper and lower body because you need to be able, like, for something, if you guys want to be able to follow, I think it's called First Down Training on Instagram. They do an excellent job very consistently posting content that show you how to attack coverages and different release platforms. So shout out to them because they didn't pay it for this at all. They don't really talk to me. I don't really talk to them, but they genuinely make some great content. If you guys do love receivers, they do a lot of stuff with that. But technique on the lower half is going to be super key off the line. And then being able to get past press down the field, you might need that lower body, but also the upper body release package is super duper key. Speed, self-explanatory. Burst, acceleration out of cuts, acceleration after the catch, both are adequate there. Versus press, talked about it, kind of works hand in hand with release, but some guys just get jammed deep. And it's like, well, if you get thrown off your route, timing is everything in the NFL. So it is super key. And then contested catch. I mean, very self-explanatory as well. Can you be able to go up and get it? Can you catch in traffic, etc.? And then blocking, the Romo Dunze trait, and then it factor, which is basically what this scale doesn't factor in, motor. Maybe just somebody who looks super polished, playmaking ability. You'll see that as a big it factor. So I called it the Brian Thomas trait, because that's what I ended up adding in, because I literally was like, I can't see this guy failing. And he didn't grade out particularly well in every single category, but I just knew he was going to be good. So the it factor came to be. Let's get into this, though. Took long enough, right? Will Sheppard is my number 32 receiver. Again, if there's a receiver who's not on this, it is not because I think they are worse than number 32. I do my best to grade as many players as possible, and the final edition of this will probably have about 50 to 55. So keep excited for that. But I want to be able to bring you guys all of this. These are the top guys of the class, and I feel like it's a little bit more self-explanatory than those who will do a top 10. So Will Sheppard, we'll talk about his game versus UCF. Again, these notes are designed to basically follow a game as it's happening. I sit down and I watch a game and I write notes for myself. You guys appreciate, because I can end up just saying, oh, well, I don't think he's a good route runner, he's not good after the catch, but I'm just repeating exactly what you see on your screen. So I wanted to provide some unique content, which are the notes that I write while I'm watching a game. So imagine you're sitting next to me and we're watching a game. These are the takeaways that I have. So I started out by having him have a pretty mediocre stop route. That's something that's super duper key to me, because the stop route, like whether it's a hitch, whether it's a button hook, like just depends on the depth of it. Like it's honestly one of the telltale signs of if you can actually drop your pads and actually stop yourself in a very short period of time. Will Sheppard drifts quite a bit. He flashed some good release packages, some good footwork, and some short range burst. Not going to be a vertical threat. Seems like he is just a release and contested catch guy. Did not even attempt to block for a flat route that was behind him. Basically, he was going up a little bit. There was a flat route developing underneath him. They targeted the flat route, and he let the defender just go right by him and make the play. Only separation is with physicality. I don't know if he will last at all in the NFL. That was the shortest one that we had, but for certain players, they're not very notable. Will Sheppard's a fun player, though. Fun player. I think contested catch-wise, you look at what he did the year before in Vanderbilt, didn't really love it, but he did a good job this year overall. So I gave a little bit more credit to him in the hands and contested catch category than maybe I should. But regardless, Will Sheppard is the number 32 player. Number 31, we got Jordan Watkins. This is someone who I really liked coming into the year, and I think he took a massive step back this year. I don't know what it is, but it felt very Jermaine Burton-y to me, with how much worse his effort and athleticism was in game. So I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if there's any off the field concerns with him, but this is the notes from his game versus Georgia. Kind of sluggish off the line to start the game. Weirdly unathletic, but there's been no injury designation for this game. He had a hamstring injury, but it was like 6 weeks before. So just FYI. He had a double catch, a slant route, so sluggish for what I know he could do. Has flashes of explosiveness, but man, he cannot separate vertically. Does a solid job with stop routes, nothing crazy. Flashes some release packages. Shit double move, slipped in open field, piss poor performance. And this is coming from me, who I literally was enamored with Jordan Watkins coming into the year. Like this guy, almost like a bigger Calvin Austin to me, if I were to make like an instant comp. But, Jermaine Burton right now feels like something, if I had to put a comparison, that would be where I'd go. Because, he's reliable hands-wise, but it really does feel like a motor concern. Like, I know he has the speed because I saw it literally last year. And he didn't have his legs snap in half. He had a little bit of a hamstring injury. It's not like his hamstring snapped either. So I don't understand why there'd be that big of a reduction. Like, maybe it's the timing of the offense, but Jordan Watkins was a massive disappointment for somebody who I love. This is going to be a shocker to some people. This is Pat Bryant, and I watched quite a few games, so I'm going to toss two of them in here. The ones who I am probably more radical in terms of being lower on, I will have probably 2 games for you guys, so hopefully you guys enjoy that. But Pat Bryant's a good player. I want to put that out there off the bat. Pat Bryant is a good player, but I do have some issues with his game. So let's talk about his game versus Michigan and his game versus Oregon. So first out, good use of physicality to gain separation at the top of his route. Seems a little top speed limited. Good job after the catch, nothing crazy. Sits in soft spots, got jammed 5 yards in. So right there, when you start hearing me talk about getting jammed past the line of scrimmage, it's usually a big issue that comes with press. So there you go. There's the F grade right there. He's a mediocre blocker. He had a weird-ass stop route. Attempted inside swim, but not success on an out route, but it was not successful. So that's talking about the upper body release package right there. He ended up trying to basically bring the defender in and then go on an out route and essentially swing. Like, it's technically called throw by. Like, that's the term that first down. Damn, whoever the hell I mentioned at the start. I think it was like first down football, but first down academy. But regardless, like when he did a throw by, it did not work, and that is a part of the release package. So it's why C is adequate, FYI. I probably should have said at the start of the video, but if you guys are still lurking, it's okay. I'll end up responding to y'all in the comments if you didn't hear that. But regardless, so the throw by was not successful, even though he attempted it. He had a stiff zig route. Overall, not a really awe-inspiring player, but he does flash some talent for sure. Versus Oregon, he got tripped versus press. He ended up bending his 45-degree cut. So on a slant route, basically, I love to see guys who are like running and then they flip their hips, right? Guys who can't run a crisp 45-degree route, whether that be a slant, whether that be a post, if you're bending it, first off, I don't know why you would do that in the first place. The whole entire point is for quick separation. So if you bend a route, you are traveling a longer distance to get to the same point, and you're giving a defender an easier way to stick to your hip. Not a fan of that at all. But on top of that, it's like when you do end up bowing outwards, that takes extra steps and extra time. If you're really needing to get that quarter of a second extra of time, maybe take a slower start step and then end up exploding out of your cut. Like that'd be my advice, I should say. He has some flashes of blocking ability, not generating much in terms of separation vertically. Good adjustment of routes after his cut to help out his quarterback. So that's called playmaking. I love playmakers. Basically, after you run your route, if you see your quarterback scrambling to the other side, or you end up realizing that your route is toast. The offense coordinator did not write up the right route for the play, and you end up seeing them adjust it, whether they go deep, whether they come back to the quarterback. I love seeing that. So I got to see that with Pat Bryant, which was nice. But continuing on, let me find out where I was at. But kind of twitchy, cannot separate with speed. Nice catch in traffic. He had a mediocre jet sweep. Flashes some 45-degree ability, or 45 cut ability with some fluidity. Has a shoulder dip release. So that's something where basically the defender is trying to press you at the line and you dip your shoulder under as you're going outside or inside, which is super key. It's good at evading press, but that's at the line of scrimmage, not past it. But the stop routes are awful. Might be a slot weapon, not an X. Blocking has been mid or bad the whole game, but at least he is willing. Some good catches in traffic, and then he ended up actually being pulled out for being hurt. So key to note there. Then we got Savion Williams. This is going to be the hot one. I mean, technically Pat Bryant is too, but I mean, it's still, I really like Savion Williams for what he can do. And I don't think, if you look at this, I don't think anybody's going to disagree with how I broke it down. It's maybe they're going to say, oh, the speed is a little bit better. Dude, in terms of him being a wide receiver and not just like running the ball in a straight line, he is not a vertical separator. But let's talk about his game versus Baylor and SMU. Baylor, I love their defense, like to death. It's a team that I like to watch every single player go up against. So keep that in mind as well. He ended up starting out the game with a wildcat rep. Pretty mediocre playmaking on a rep that did not work. He had to double catch a certain route. He has running back reps. Honestly, do not like his route running. He has great contact balance. He even ended up having a tight end rep, which TCU used this guy all over the field, which is great. He does not appear to be a really great athlete. Dropped a wide open post route. That broke my soul too. I was watching Besh, which we'll get into a lot later in this episode, and it was like, I saw that play again, and it literally broke my heart. It was wide open, middle of the field, no one around, and woof. He seems to get siloed into going one-on-one versus a defender rather than seeing the whole field. So after the catch, he can end up looking like if he's going at a defender, sometimes he doesn't process where else to go. It's not a consistent thing, but it is something I realize that sometimes he just wants to go through somebody, and he doesn't need to. Sometimes it's best for the team and the play for him to avoid contact. But, it is what it is. There's bigger issues in the world. Regardless, I don't know if he's going to be an NFL wide receiver, and that's because of the fact that he is so gadgety. Showing some playmaking ability after being locked up initially, he could possibly be a running back / tight end transfer. I would just love to see him with Sean Payton. That's the bottom line. I'm literally screaming for Sean Payton here, and my dumbass didn't put it as a dream fit, but the more I read this, the more I'm like, this is Sean Payton. So toss in the Broncos as a dream fit. Don't take those fits too seriously, though. He can flip his hips very well on a 45-degree cut. Good flash of release on a slant route. Confirmed that he is probably a big slot. Then I watched SMU. Let's see if this game shows what people are wanting to talk about because his hype is at an all-time high. He had a heavy drift on a stop route. He body caught contested catch. That's a big thing with him. If you start saying that he catches the ball away from his body consistently, you are exposing yourself for not actually watching Savion Williams. This guy is kind of a body catcher. So it is an issue I've seen with TCU players as well. If I'm not mistaken, Quinn Johnston had similar complaints. And I'm not going to drop the QJ comp on Savion, but not a horrible idea if you were to. I don't force comps, by the way. I know a lot of people love to do that. That's just not my thing. But regardless, not a bad skinny post cut. So as you can see, I really did like that 45-degree change of direction. Regardless, I'm back at it. Flashes some good run blocking, not overly fast nor explosive apart from after the catch. Poor ball track on a deep shot. Pause. So basically, jokes aside, there was a deep pass. He ended up not being able to track it properly. Do have some concerns with that. Ball tracking is kind of a real thing in the NFL. You need to know where the ball is going to be because everything's about timing and placement. The only good aspect of his route running would be his 45-degree cuts, good vision on a jet sweep, and then ended up talking about number 14 looking nice, and he ended up being subbed out. So Savion Williams, I think he'll end up being a top 100 pick. I think if you're looking for somebody that, you want as a gadget player, you absolutely could get far better production. But if you're looking at Savion holistically as a wide receiver, trying to get someone who is going to generate separation through his route running, through even his physicality for that matter, and someone who's going to be reliable because his hands are pretty damn garbage, over 10% drop rate, it's just going to be very difficult to work with Savion Williams. But if you have the vision, if you have the run after the catch ability and use him as a big slot, I think there's a lot that could be had there. So excited to see what Savion Williams does, but again, I have my concerns. Jackson Meeks is next. Got to see him at the Shrine Bowl, and he did a pretty damn solid job there as well. And so let's get into this. So versus NC State, underwhelming routes so far with some low intensity. Nice 45-degree cut on his post route. His ins have been absolutely ass. There's the hard cut change of direction right there, everybody. Runs into downfield press coverage. There you go, seeing that D plus versus press. Regardless, dropped a contested catch. Another dropped catch on the sideline. Worried about his focus drops. I actually ended up posting that clip over on X. He actually ended up showing some good playmaking ability, but did end up dropping the pass as well. Really not enjoying his tape to start out the game. Just not really doing well in one-on-one coverage. Not doing much after the catch. He got a catch in traffic while being rocked, which was a big plus because early in the game the focus drops seemed to be a little bit concerning. Short hitches are solid. Finally had some good run after the catch with a stiff arm and a slip tackle. His best releases are on run plays. Oh, I hate hearing that. Oh, well, I hate reading that because I'm like, I remember when I read that or when I wrote it, and I'm like, I really liked a particular release he had, and I realized it was on a run play, and I was like, God, that kicks me in the balls. It really does. But it wasn't an RPO either. It was just a straight run. Nice touchdown, slightly adjusting his hitch for a soft spot in the zone. I saw that it was in the red zone. It was on the goal line, and he ran a hitch and ended up drifting a little bit away from the defender, allowing a bigger window for McCord to, fit it in. And he did a good job. It ended up being a good touchdown there. I love seeing the IQ there. Showing a lot more potential after the catch as the game progressed. Flashed some more of that release package downfield after this game continued to progress. Flash of blocking skill, slow start, but a strong finish. And as Antonio Brown once said, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And I do like the fact that Meeks ended up improving his game as it went on. But I think the biggest story with Meeks is that the inconsistencies there, the playmaking's there. But, ultimately, you do see somebody who is willing to make those big plays and is willing to have some higher level IQ moments. For like literally as of my 30th wide receiver, I have faith that these guys can stick on rosters. So like that's pretty damn awesome. But Konata Mumpfield is next, and he's coming on the show really like Konata Mumpfield. And you look at the grades and it's like, okay, well, wide receiver 27, that doesn't sound very good at all. But we're talking about someone that most people believe is day 3. He doesn't have necessarily the best measurables. And he's somebody who I personally have loved to see. Like, he really is fun. You look at the grades, and if you say C is adequate in the NFL, like, he has 2 categories in blocking and run after the catch ability that I have legitimate doubts on. Now, I would say that he does a good job on average of pretty much doing a lot of things right. But I will say, like, there is some concerns, especially in terms of the frame, in terms of the hand size, that maybe some people will have some questions on. But he popped off to me in person. I really liked watching him versus SMU. But let's talk about his game versus Clemson. He started out the game with a horrible release, because I remember this. He ended up just pretty much being locked up at the line of scrimmage. Number 11 on Pittsburgh, by the way, ended up popping off. Pass bounce off his hands. Downfield releases are better. He is twitchy. He had a really nice in route. Has a hard time catching outside his frame. I did see that. Some balls that are like behind him or a little bit too far in front. I did see kind of a little bit more difficulty there, and that kind of leads in with the hand size. If I'm not mistaken, they're sub 9 inches. It's like 8.5. So starting to get into that uncomfortable zone. He had a nice rocker step on a post. So you can call that release package. I call that part of the route running. It is technically a downfield release move. A rocker step basically is where you kind of like fake out and then go in. Again, shout out to First Down Academy for teaching me that. I was not a wide receiver, so I am not going to claim that I am a wide receiver, but I do like to learn from those who do know what they're talking about. But continuing on. Another bad drop on the move. So again, talking about that hard time catching outside of your frame. Has some solid releases, but the top speed does look a little bit limited for his size. It's not seeing much run after the catch, and that's pretty much where the notes for that game ended. But Konata is somebody, even though I messaged him, we're actually bringing him on today for an interview, which is super hype. But Konata is a great player. I have nothing against him. He is a fun player. And again, at 27, people talk about this class as being crap. They don't know what they're talking about. Like, people just aren't digging deep enough to the point where, I mean, maybe I'm just an optimist in terms of what these guys can do in the NFL, but I don't think that there's much of an issue with Konata Mumpfield. Like, I don't see it. I see there's like a legitimate role for him in the NFL. And for that being wide receiver 27, you're going to be like, what the hell? But it's a good wide receiver class. It is. Maybe not the top, but when we continue this list, you're going to see day 2 guys that are popping up to me and saying, hey, these guys are legitimate weapons. Jacolby George is next. I really like Jacolby George. Got to see him in person as well at the Shrine, which was super fun. But versus Iowa State, I will be honest, this game, his tape bores me more than I expected. So keep that in mind. It bored me. I was really heavily leaning on the excitement I got from him at the Shrine. But I prefer the Shrine over the in-game play to a certain degree, because I'd rather you have kind of boring tape, but not bad tape. Like, if you have bad tape and then you look good at the Shrine or Senior, it's like, okay, I'm going to give you credit for improving, but I'm still going to be worried. Jacolby just had more boring tape, and then he was more electric at the Shrine, and I'd prefer that than the other way around, because, scheme, defenders, other things factor how good you look on tape. But I mean, you could say the same thing about the Shrine, but if you look electric, like being exciting is very difficult to capture. So it's good to see that even in person, he was able to do it. But let's talk about his game versus Iowa State. It's a little bit of a short one. So he's not really running routes. That's something I noticed about him. He has good route running ability, but for some reason, he would like drift. It wouldn't be super duper precise after the cut. And it was just a little bit interesting. And I saw this for a lot of Miami players. It didn't feel like they were running like very, like, I don't know how to say disciplined routes. It felt a little bit more like wonky, right? Like they're kind of just going to an area where they're supposed to be on the field. He can get slowed down by press. He ended up having a drop, has good twitch, and can bend routes with momentum. This is actually called the Travis Hunter effect. I used to grade players pretty poorly on their hard cut change of direction based on whether you could drop your hips, and like I didn't like rounded ins and out routes. And for the very similar reason, I don't like rounded 45-degree cuts. But for ins and outs, I think that players, especially after watching so many of the NFL receivers modify their game, Amari Cooper was best for dropping his hips and making those sharp cuts. But you look at guys even like Justin Jefferson, are you going to say that he sucks because he doesn't completely drop his hips and then cut on a dime? Or he's just unbelievably fluid and can cut on a dime while maintaining momentum by curving his route, right? So it's the difference between doing this and doing this, right? So for some guys, they literally just can't, so they drift. And you can tell guys who like maintain their momentum and can do a proper in route while like bending it versus guys who literally just can't run ins and out routes that are just like, I can't drop my hips, I can't maintain momentum. Like there's a visible difference, and it takes time to understand that. But I mean, it's taken me quite a while to understand it. But regardless, Jacolby George did a great job there. He has some deep speed. Overall, looks like a fun gadget. I'm not sure if he's a true every down kind of guy, as seen by him being swapped in and out of the lineup, which I don't think anybody thinks Jacolby George is an every down type of dude. But he's somebody who I really liked in person. I did not love the measurables, 168, sub 5'11", but regardless, there are bigger crimes on planet Earth. Let's talk about Sam Brown. It's another U wide receiver. Let's talk about him versus Virginia Tech, though. And also Jacolby George, if I'm not mistaken, like he had certain games that were a much lower rep. I wanted to choose Iowa State because A, you're going up against some good competition there at Iowa State, but B, you also end up seeing some more overall looks in terms of his overall ability. So I really like that because there's more reps there. You get to see more. Regardless, Sam Brown versus Virginia Tech. Smooth mover, solid athlete, poor curl. He bends his in routes, but he maintains solid momentum. Some clean releases. Can see the it factor with him. Solid run after the catch play design not helping. Nice job on a shoulder separation. Tight contested catch in traffic. Fuck, I can't read to say. He's okay. We'll back up a second. Nice job on shoulder separation. I'm just gonna be honest. I assume that is going to be pushing your shoulder in to gain separation. Tight catch in traffic, cannot do a curl route. So I probably should have graded him a little bit higher than an F for hard cut. But again, I don't look at a player and say F, A, B. This is just, I have like a range. So it's like, let's just say for a hard cut change of direction, like 0 to 5 will give you an F. That's why you see an F. Not because I just put F, but because I ended up putting a grade, let's just say 0 to 5 for the sake of argument. So when you can't do a curl route, like a hitch, that will piss me off. So with Sam Brown, he's super fun at Houston, though. After the catch, he's going to be super duper fun. Like, I could totally see him being a gadget weapon in offenses that are trying to get that fifth wide receiver and get somebody who can be able to play on particular packages. But Sam Brown, good player. Bottom line, good player. Dan Jackson is next. One of the most difficult players to Google because every time you put Daniel Jackson, it comes up with a damn Georgia safety. But I've been hearing nothing about Dan Jackson since the middle of the season. So feel free to enlighten me as to why. But he ended up declaring. I had to check like 3 times, and it was on his page every single time. But let's talk about his game versus Michigan. Smooth 45-degree cuts, flash of an inside-out release. So he fakes in, goes out. Nice downfield releases as well. Soft spot, he sits down in a soft spot. Kind of slow stop routes, not bad though. Nice separation ability with some burst. Excellent release packages. Route fakes. Don't see much in terms of top speed. He had a very stiff zig route. Just feels like a Los Angeles Ram. Gorgeous slant go post. Okay, so I'm like, what the fuck am I writing here? So he ends up running a slant. So it's a sluggo, and then he transitions it to a post as well. So I don't know if you guys saw that. There you go. That's the route right there. Again, I write these notes for myself, not for you guys, but you guys seem to enjoy it, and it gives good context. See real potential with him. Athleticism might be the issue in terms of long speed, though. So overall, like a really good player. Again, we're at that point where we're seeing players be legitimately viable, and that's really awesome to see. Like, this is a good group of players. Do not get it wrong. Beaux Collins is next. Beaux Collins was like my wide receiver 2 coming into the year and just did not improve. He already had issues with route running. He was already not a great athlete, and he already had issues with hands. So the problem is it didn't get better. But regardless, so let's talk about his game versus Florida State. I ended up posting some clips on X about this as well. Physical off the bat with some twitch, versus Azariah Thomas, does a good job off the line, but no separation with speed. Gets good positioning overall. Does a good job with positioning and evading press at the line of scrimmage, just does not have the ability to separate. Blew past Azariah Thomas with a press evasion, and he was not targeted. I posted that rep on Twitter. You guys can go find that. Solid stop routes, poor in route. Has some sudden hips, but he does not gain separation, even with 45-degree cuts. Blew past Azariah Thomas again, or Azareye'h, not Azariah, excuse me, Azareye'h Thomas again. Overall, much better than the consensus believes. He will be a steal. It just really comes down to his hands, man. His hands and his separation ability. It doesn't make sense because he's not a horrible athlete, but, maybe he was just going up against some pretty tough guys, which he was, but again, in the NFL, you're not going to get any easier players than Azareye'h Thomas. Not saying Azareye'h will be the easiest that you'll face in the NFL, but I'm saying the NFL, the talent level is Azareye'h Thomas, essentially. If you get lucky, you won't. But, there are the Azareye'h Thomases of the world. And you guys know I'm an Azareye'h Thomas guy. But great blocker. He was someone with like a 3+ it factor before. I think he's going to be great. This is going to be also some contention here. People are big fans of Tez Johnson. I was a big fan of Tez Johnson. I still am a big fan of Tez Johnson. But I do think we need to be a little bit more down to earth. We look at his size. I think there's some big issues there. But love Tez, love his story. It's just a very good receiver class. You'll see that the separation between these guys is very, very minimal, right? So, I think that Tez's top speed was good. Not great. I got to see it in person in Mobile. Obviously is there, but again, remember, C is adequate, B is really good, B+, excellent, and then the A is you're talking about unbelievable. So again, keep that in mind, because if you just see B, you're probably going to be like, eh. But I'm someone who doesn't like to give out nice grades too often, because I want to give credit to those who deserve it. But let's talk about Tez Johnson versus the second time he faced Ohio State, the final game. He double caught an easy catch because he tried to run upfield before securely catching the ball. Has great explosion out of his cuts. Crazy spin slant. That was insane. He basically did like a hitch, but faked it and ended up going into a slant. He did it twice in the game. It was ridiculous. Ran into a defender on a jet sweep. Plays slower than his top speed actually is. So there you go. Speed also considers play speed. Catching traffic, solid out route, playmaker mentality, does not play with 100% speed very often. Nice juke in open field, clean inside release versus catch man. Overall unimpressed for how good of a player I know him to be. It was a little bit of a down year for Tez. I didn't see, I know he'll end up generating separation at a better rate given how talented he is, but it really was, when you watch his tape, it was very unimpressive for the fact that I was very impressed with him before. He was a top 15 receiver for me coming into the year. And, again, when you factor in the size, if he was randomly actually a normal size, let's just say 180, 190, I would end up dropping that -3, and this guy would end up probably being wide receiver 12. So, again, for those of y'all who are butthurt about it, it really is. That's why I have the it factor there, because it needs to, the frame needs to take a hit somewhere. I need to do it somewhere. So I'm not going to make a BS frame category like I used to have, because, well, at the end of the day, if you have a great frame, awesome. It should show up in other parts of your game. If you have a smaller frame, it's not going to show up enough. I'm just going to put that out there. That's another reason why I love having the 8 factor in there as well. Jaylin Noel's next. Jaylin Noel's a good player. Again, we're talking about right here is around my top 100. So yes, I have a lot of receivers I have a lot of confidence in. So again, including Tez. Tez is right there, that 120 range. Jaylin Noel's in that, I think, 115 to 110 range. Really good player. But let's talk about his game versus Iowa. Explosive off the line, a feisty blocker, poor hitch route, drifted his curl into a defender. 0 separation to start out the game. Less athletic than he looked on the first play. Flash of physicality. Nice deep route with some smooth fakes. Thrives when navigating through defenders, but is less effective in open space. Nice fluidity on an out route. Thriving versus less athletic defenders. When he gets hot in all caps. Overall, I can see him working out with a team that like the Rams. Really, man, I really like the Rams for some reason. They can utilize guys with unique abilities, but he will not be an on-paper great player. And I think that's perfectly fair. I think Jaylin Noel is going to be a little bit more of somebody who is going to be more scheme specific in terms of his impact. And it will be very heavily more focused on his post-draft analysis rather than, this right here in terms of how successful I think he will be. But the potential's there. The potential is absolutely there. Ricky White is next. And I really like Ricky White. Like, he was somebody who was very, very high for me coming into the year in terms of being a top 64 player. But I got to see him in Mobile. I actually got to see him here in Dallas. And he was still fun, but I saw a lot more issues with this game. But let's talk about his game versus Boise State the second time around. Good contact balance, pretty mediocre routes so far with a very little fluidity. Things changed. Explosiveness just did not appear to be there the same way it was. He flashed a good spin move, some nice use of physicality downfield versus press coverage. The release package is awesome. Better hitches with higher intensity as the game went on. Some non-standard route running styles. It almost feels like he is all over the place and cannot run a crisp route, but I know he can, so maybe he will improve upon this at the next level, but he's not coming into the NFL with that consistency. Can see the blocking desire, but not the practicality. Explosiveness picked up big time as the game progressed. Good use of physicality to gain separation, not separating at the top end with top end speed the way I thought he should. 45-degree cuts are crisp. Flips his hips well on 90 degrees. Seems to be just a shit start to the game. Zone IQ is not there. He does not sit proper in soft zone spots. Top speed definitely seems to be capped for his size. And it really was like the size right there, 179 bothers me because he did look like he had some issues in the Shrine Bowl versus guys like Noel Williams who are bigger. So I do have that concern for him for sure. Now let's talk about Caden Prather next. This guy's awesome. He's a very good player. Again, he's going to be he's a potential X receiver, like a legit in the right role with the right coaching. This guy is going to be fucking fun. But let's talk about his game versus Iowa, because again, good players, love to see them go at each other. Iowa DBs versus Maryland wide receivers is always fun. Nice outside release and stop route, very bendy for his frame. Does a great job evading contact by defenders as he runs routes. Great bend on hard cuts, missed a behind throw, so basically did not get the ball when it was thrown behind him. Gets to top speed pretty quickly, but maybe won't have the top speed to be a true deep threat with his size. Getting some screen reps, but I would not say he's much of a run after the catch threat. Nice playmaking in the red zone. He was not targeted though. 45-degree cuts have been okay. Did not fight through contact and allowed an interception downfield. So again, there's a lot of crazy traits with Caden Prather to the point where like great athlete, great frame, great size, great release package. Like this guy has the bones of making a superstar. It's just right now it's not there just yet. So again, this is going to be a very heavy post-draft analysis, but I mean, for a team like the Ravens, you want to go down the street and get yourself somebody who could absolutely be both a downfield threat and someone who could be like just a separator with an X frame. You might not want to look too far from him. Isaiah Bond's next. Love Isaiah Bond, but he ended up having a pretty down year. Let's talk about his game later in the year versus Kentucky. I ended up cherry picking it, but it was his last okay game. So after this, the games were not as good as this. So I cherry picked because I know Kentucky's a good squad. I have a couple other players that I watched versus Kentucky as well. Instant takeoff, but no separation on a deep curl. Routes are definitely are not as crisp as they used to be. Pad level's a bit high on hard cuts more than it was last year. Nice comeback route. Nice fake on a post was with a poorly thrown ball for a pass breakup. He had a clean crossing route. Adjust routes post cut to make more opportunities for the quarterback. In other words, he's a playmaker. Love that. Regardless, not going to be a blocking asset. Slipped a poor tackle and got out of bounds with a minute to go in the half. He's a go-to weapon in the 2-minute drill, so I probably should have given him a +1 if I'm just going to be honest, but it probably would have ended up being canceled out by more negatives for his drop-off, etc. But I digress. He needs to be better in terms of catching traffic and contested catch. Not a great blocker, but has some great moments. Drifts a bit too much on his 90-degree cuts when he curves. Catching traffic is just not there. So I was a little bit disappointed, but obviously he is a super weapon. He's going to run crazy fast, and we know the potential's there. So when healthy, I think this guy's going to be a gadget weapon. We'll see where he goes, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to see what he does. Now we got Trey Harris at 17. We'll talk about his game versus Kentucky as well. A lot of people love Trey Harris. I like Trey Harris a lot. Ended up dealing with some injury issues, which is why he couldn't go to the Shrine, hence the -1. But let's talk about his game versus Kentucky. Big game, but let's see why. Not overly explosive, not super clean for his stop routes. Good job shedding contact after the catch. 45 degrees cuts are not fluid. Deep speed is nice with some downfield hand release, so he's basically swatting hands and stuff, with a nice post. Mid double move, upper release tactics are better than his lower release, which is kind of rare. Usually the upper, like, people don't really talk about it, but it is what it is. He has flashes of burst, nice fake post for an out route. So that was kind of like, that's his most famous play, is basically he's running into the blind spot and he makes that cut and the defender basically bites and he goes for an out route. Like that's the play I'm referencing there. Has a nice leg drive after the catch to get extra yards. Solid in route with vision for the touchdown. So Trey Harris is a unique build in terms of the fact that he's a fun athlete. Like, for me, my thoughts on him never change. He's a fun athlete that has after the catch ability. And, again, there's a role for that in the NFL. But you see with guys like Savion Williams, I prefer some things that are more than just run after the catch. And so in the right system where you're valuing the run after the catch ability, I think this guy's going to be a baller. Now let's talk about Ty Felton getting right here into the wide receiver 2 room. So Ty Felton's fun, or maybe this is, this is the wide receiver 2 room. So again, I'm forgetting exactly the thresholds that I put for the wide receiver 2s, but regardless, I think that in the right situation, Ty Felton could end up being like a nearly every down starter. But regardless, versus Iowa, crisp route, but the ball went right through his hands. He's a willing blocker. Good job attacking the blind spot and dropping his hips on a stop route. Flips hips well on hard cuts. Loves to go into cornerback blind spots. Solid vision after the catch, splitting 4 defenders for a first down. Honestly, he's a little underwhelming as an athlete for his size and role. Tries to do a fake route fake, but the 45-degree cuts just don't seem as efficient. Drops over the middle in traffic he drops passes that are over the middle in traffic that are not placed properly. Pressing vertically, but does not separate with speed the way I thought he would. Short range acceleration is good out of breaks, but I really am underwhelmed by his overall athletic profile. Again, with the notion of him being the athlete that he is. But I digress. He ended up dropping the ball when the corner was actually coming in, so he kind of got a little bit ahead of himself. Simply unacceptable. Good use of putting hand on the ground to get the extra yard, though, and ended up ending off the game with a clean comeback. So, I mean, again, Ty Felton, when it comes to stop routes, in routes, out routes, comebacks, this guy's like up there with the best of the best. He is a very, very solid athlete, but again, we're just talking about like someone who's a little bit on the thinner side. I don't know if he actually is 186, even though he weighed that way, but good player. I mean, again, we're at that spot where I legitimately think these guys should get reps at the next level. Xavier Restrepo's next. We'll talk about his game versus Florida State. Not overly athletic, but has a nice burst and clean cuts. Not out there nearly as much as I thought he would snap-wise. Ran into press, but then shrugged them off. Poor stop route, does these little burst cuts to gain separation. Solid 45-degree cuts. Not a good blocker. Short sweep to the point. He's reliable. I mean, everybody kind of just knows what you're getting with Xavier Restrepo, just a damn good player. So maybe he's just not going to be the blocking threat you want. Is what it is, but he is just Mr. Reliable. There's a reason why he was setting records there in Miami. Then we got Jalen Royals next. Jalen Royals is a super fun one of my favorite players coming into the year. Ended up having a little bit more of a down year in terms of health, but ended up coming back and doing well at the Senior Bowl. Let's talk about his game versus Boise State, which is a big one. Smooth, bursty mover, but not super crisp in terms of route running, but he is nice. Good contact balance, shifty he had a shitty out to post route, so he ended up basically faking an out and going for a post. Did not look good. Able to vertically stretch the field. Shows that he knows how to get behind defenders. Thrives in the slot as he is not a crazy route runner. Over distance, more so of a short range guy. Can get tangled up versus press. these deep releases are honestly great. 20 is also good. So I don't know if that was on the defense for Boise State, but bottom line, you're not going to be using Jalen Royals as a route runner. You're not going to use him in that role. He's going to be after the catch. He's a good player though, and I'm excited for what he's going to be able to bring to the NFL. But you know, we got to see him even when he's not healthy be a pretty damn solid player in terms of separation and mobile. So love to give him the love there, but contested catch wise, he did take a dip this year. Ja'Cory Brooks is next. He's been receiving a lot of hate. I don't really understand why, but it is what it is. Let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame versus Ben Morrison. Twitchy and good hand releases. Good job with positioning on a deep ball, but did not bring it in. But the PI he ended up getting a PI call because Morrison was holding his other arm. Feels like an it factor guy. Adjusted his route to get a touchdown. Definitely a big it guy. Literally alters his route for optimal separation during the play. I love it. Feels almost Brian Thomas-y. Let's forget I said that, but you know, in a very, very like a Walmart clearance version of Brian Thomas. Juggled the ball to an interception on an open target, which is a big no-no. Much better hard stops. I swear this quarterback is holding him back. That's kind of a contention. I have not fully graded Shuck yet, and a lot of people are starting to like absolutely glaze the fuck out of him. So we'll see about it. Not a bad blocker. Pretty stiff on his comeback route, but he ended up stumbling. That's why. Calling for the ball even when he's covered like a savage, and then he goes and gets a touchdown on a fade. And I said straight baller, very impressed. So yeah, I mean, he's going to be super duper fun. You know, Brian Thomas is a very, 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 very loose comp, but I honestly think the ceiling is there. Incredible speed. Like he does have that. He just is a damn good player. And I don't know why people don't love him as much as they should. Lajohntay Wester is next. And you will see that a lot of these guys are starting to get tied. I could have done 11A, 11B. I'm just going to be straight to it. You guys can put 11A, 11B. You guys can see the score. You guys can see the grade. But Lajohntay Wester is here, and I love him to death. Let's talk about his game versus Kansas, but I also blended this in with what I saw at the Shrine Bowl. Solid runner after the catch, not as explosive as I thought. That changed when I saw him at the Shrine, hence why I adjusted it. He's a willing blocker. Nice shoulder dip versus downfield press. He had some okay 45-degree cuts. Would want for him to be a little bit more explosive off the line. Turns out he is. Has the Travis bent in route. So that's some big praise right there. Great run after the catch. Does a solid job staying alive and trying to create play opportunities. Low-key feels like an on-sale version of Travis Hunter, which, again, not a bad thing. But he's a skinny dude. Sub 170, hence the -3. But I love him to death. He really knows how, like, I don't know what's up, but no one's talking about how Shedeur had arguably the best receiving core in all of college. Like, legitimately, it is awesome. So let's continue. Let's continue here. Luther Burden is next. This is a hot one. Luther Burden is somebody who I've always thought of as a very solid player, and his grade did not change at all from 2023 to 2024. So, or 2024 to 2025, whatever you want to call it, draft year wise. But Luther's a good player. He's just not holistically a great wide receiver, in my opinion. But in the right role, I think he'll be very, very good. Like, great after the catch, reliable weapon, solid athlete. Like, it's there, but he's not a great route runner. And anybody who says he is, like, a great route runner, just going to be honest, like, I think there are other parts of his game that are far more commendable. I think his ball tracking is incredible. That's the +1 right there, by the way. But let's get into this. His game versus South Carolina. The dude runs with zero intensity. That's something, that's where the Terrace Marshall motor comes in. I always thought that he never ran hard until he actually was the primary target. Luther Burden does not have, and I have legit motor concerns with this dude because he genuinely does not seem to give a shit mid-route. But I digress. Has small burst adjustment on crossers, so those little burst cuts, which I saw with Restrepo. Stop routes seem very hard for him. He drifts a shit ton. Very little explosion out of his cuts for a run after the catch receiver. Able to make a guy miss, but he's just not the same game-breaking athlete in short space the way I thought he would be. I'm sorry, he's just not looking remotely close to what people say he is. He only runs hard when he is the #1 read. Horrible double move, did not even seem to run it with intensity. Slips arm tacklers, pulled out near the goal line. That's actually a pretty key note right there. Like, even at the goal line, he was not part of their primary packages. And that's a big red flag to me. The offensive coordinator didn't think that, even though maybe he's not the best guy on planet Earth for a jump ball, like, he has great deep speed, great contested catch ability. It's surprising that they would pull him out at the goal line. At least he's willing to block, has deep speed, but lacks explosiveness. Good fade touchdown, not great coverage, in my opinion. So I'm hoping I'm wrong about Luther, but I cannot stand players who do not run with good intensity. That's me. Like, that, I'm just not a fan of that. So continuing on, we got Andrew Armstrong. Just brought him on the show for an interview. He's my wide receiver 6, but I ended up shifting some things around, ended up looking like adjusting for age and stuff. And, he's still a top 10 player, top 10 receiver on my board, and I absolutely love his game. I think when people dive into his tape, people are going to realize how much they've been missing out. And so I'm excited to give him that love. Again, feel free to go check it out. It's like a 27-minute interview where you just get to know him as a person. So I thought that was great. So continuing, let's talk about his game versus Tennessee. So, because I wanted to see him versus Jermod McCoy. Started out the game with a pancake block. Not overly explosive off the line. Nice hitch route. Can pick up speed. Needs to watch out with shortening his stride length before he cuts. Because that's a big indicator for me that I thought that's why he honestly didn't separate as much as he should. When he was going to cut, his stride length would significantly change. Like, he's about to cut. So I think that was one of the reasons why he had some issues there. Stop routes have been great. Swatted the arms of the defender while running a route. Good catch in traffic. He does kind of have these double catchy hands. Even if it is an initial catch, it's hard to explain. I just don't trust on the initial grab that it's going to consistently be a catch. Bench presses corners off the line when blocking. Slipped an arm tackle. Stopped a crosser route to help out his bailing quarterback. So he was running a crosser route. Quarterback bailed the other way. He actually ended up redirecting towards the sideline. Good for him. Outside release with a nice ball track for a big game versus Jermod McCoy. A little stiff and open space for a run after the catch after making an initial move. So that's something I also realized. After making one move, he does have almost like he needs to recharge before being as explosive and fluid on the second. It was a little bit concerning to me. He bends his slants closer to the quarterback post-cut to generate more separation. So this is something I was talking about and complaining about a lot of players bending their 45-degree cuts, but they almost like drift it into the defender. What he would do is he'd run, but then he'd realize that there's not enough separation. He'd actually bend his slant closer to the QB to get more separation and be able to generate upfield. I've never seen that before, and it worked out really well. Another great outside release and track for a big gain with late hands. So Andrew Armstrong, someone who I have a lot of faith in, really, really good player. Good dude as well. He's just 24, so that's the only issue, but he also doesn't have a ton of mileage on those tires. Elic Ayomanor, love him. Number 9. And let's talk about his game versus Notre Dame. Nice blocking rep, a good job coming to the ball after a hitch route rather than waiting and slipping. Then he ended up slipping a poor arm tackle. He's not a crazy athlete, but he is very smooth. I realized he actually picks up speed like a motherfucker because I realized, I'm like, damn, like, out of the corner of my eye on one play, I realized this guy was absolutely burning downfield, and I didn't realize it was him. So I went back and I'm like, oh, I was watching the wrong player for that play. And so, yeah, I mean, it's funny. Usually when you don't look for something is when you actually find it, but I digress. Nice angled out route with contact balance. These corners are sticky as hell for Notre Dame. Great job going from a fade post hitch. So, hold on. What the hell did I just write there? Great job going fade post hitch, and I just said playmaker. So, he went for a fade, then he went to a post, and then he went to a hitch. So I think he ended up adjusting his route a couple times to be able to make it work. So he's a playmaker, thoroughly like his stop routes, has an issue with these corners and press, but he still hand fights. Adjusted for incoming defenders to make him get in the way of the corner. So, I love this. I ended up posting about this as well. He ended up, I think, going on a slant or a skinny post, and there was a defender following a running back that was running a swing, and he actually ran in a way that the defender was like, the way to cover Ayomanor, the defender had to go through or go around the defender that was coming after the running back. So he generated artificial separation by forcing the defenders to basically adjust for each other. I love that. Can build up speed big time, just does not do it all that often. Nasty double move with a shit throw. Nice in route, subbed out for because Notre Dame ended up kicking their ass that game. But Ayomanor's an absolute savage. I love him to death. This is someone who even though he doesn't have all the best grades on planet Earth, I think he has the bare bones to make a superstar. Kyle Williams is next. Did not expect for him to grade up this highly for me, and you're going to see that about a couple of these guys on this list. Kyle Williams is awesome. Let's talk about his game versus Boise State. Nice slip of arm tackle for a first down. Has some deep speed. Acceleration does not appear to be as good as his speed. Showing some slide releases. Good acceleration out of his break. Nice outside release again. Some nice hard cuts. Clean 45-degree cut as well. Good use of route fakes. Does a great job flipping his hips on hard cuts. Great track for a touchdown, stemming the defensive back inside and then tracking it outside. So he basically generated extra separation by drifting the cornerback away from where he needed to be. Great track on I ended up talking about the touchdown right there. Has not been a blocker overall. Double catch nearly caused an interception, but it was a very behind ball. Overall, I am wowed. And that's the game of Kyle Williams. He popped off at the Senior Bowl. I think he's fantastic, a little bit undersized and a little bit role specific, hence why the it factor is there. Let's talk about Jimmy Horn. But you know what? Also, Kyle Williams, 20 broken tackles, missed tackles forced on 70 receptions. That's a crazy rate. Jimmy Horn Jr. is next. I did not expect to like Jimmy Horn Jr. this much, but let's talk about his game versus Baylor. Is one of his few 30-plus rep games. So very fluid and explosive off the bat. Clean outs with flipped hips and momentum. Evades press very well. Screen catch outside of his body and then shed and drug defenders for extra yards. Ended up getting a pancake block. Gorgeous stop route. He's a playmaker. Went from a crossover to a deep fade to help almost score a touchdown if Sanders put more juice on the ball. Nasty rocker step, feisty blocker, slows down in soft spots when running crossers, constantly evolving the route to get open, inside to outside release, a ton of would-be touchdowns, just not targeted, clean double move. Overall, wowed. I'm going to be honest, if the weight doesn't actually become a big concern as time progresses, Antonio Brown's the ceiling. I mean, maybe the contested catch part is where it's not there, but he kind of gives me those vibes. And I'm a Steelers fan, so that name is very revered. But Jimmy Horn Jr. could be the best receiver in this class, and I would not be surprised one bit. Like, if you end up telling me in 3 years Jimmy Horn Jr. is the best receiver in the class, I'd be like, okay. I mean, that checks out for me. I would love him on the Steelers, honestly, because he plays outside as well as in the slot. Matt Golden's at 6. We'll talk about his game versus Clemson here. He's versus Terrell. Trucked. He ended up trucking when he got trucked when he was blocking. Can get stuck versus off press. Smooth curved in route, maintaining momentum. Beautiful stop route. Nice deep post for contested catch. And catch in traffic with a good ball track. Would say his off the line acceleration is worse than Isaiah Bond's. Kind of not hard to do. So clean with these hard cutting routes. It's hard to find a better receiver with distance drifted or speed maintained. Not a great double move. Dropped a contested catch on a slant or catch in traffic on a slant. Flashes upper and lower releases. I would say he is not polished though. Dropped a drag route with the ball behind. He is overall a fluid mover. So Matt Golden was my number 14 receiver coming to the year from Houston, and he ended up improving and doing even better this year for Texas, and I love it. Stephon Diggs absolutely is the ceiling for him. I would love to see him go and be able to prove himself and be able to potentially replace Stephon Diggs there in Houston. Emeka Egbuka's next. Love Emeka Egbuka. Great player. I just have 2 players outside of the standard top 4 that are going to be in this list. So this is no slight at Emeka. This is exactly the same spot where most people have him. Versus Michigan. Good effort even in pre-snap motion. Nice and explosive off the line. Fluid. He had a pancake block. Smooth 45-degree cut with momentum. Very nice in route. Not super sharp, but keeps up the momentum. Such a smooth curl route runner. So stop routes. Low-key, more explosive JSN vibes. Feel like his top speed is capped. He can get there quickly, but he's not separating as a vertical threat the way I thought he would and the way he should be given his route running ability. So I really like Emeka, though. I mean, Emeka's been a sweetheart of mine. I ended up being very concerned with his play in last year, but he was very hurt, and I was just saying I really think he's going to bounce back, and he did. So super excited for that. Emeka is going to be a star in the NFL. Travis Hunter is next. This is going to be a hot one. A lot of people think he's the best receiver in the class. I think he's a damn good one. But before you end up getting grouchy, let's talk about it. So let's talk about his game versus UCF. Super fluid. Great IQ for sitting in zone soft spots. Great catch away from the body. Just did some weird shit on a jet sweep that ended up making it worse. So he ended up trying to like run around and do all this like Johnny Manziel type of shit, and it didn't work. Good job attacking a blind spot pre-cut. Nice job run after the catch after a hitch route. Acceleration is not necessarily great, but he can build up speed and has short area burst. Flashing some release packages, came back towards the quarterback after a hitch route, straight up juked a defender and made him think he was going deep into his zone and then cut underneath. He's a crap blocker. Good job modifying the route post-cut to adjust for the play and even evolve the route after it is ran when the play breaks down, so playmaker mentality. 45s are kind of mid, and there's just the big issue with him is that there's so many extremely low intensity reps, and I think it's because he's reserving his energy, but again, I think consistency is super key. Travis Hunter is a great player, though. I mean, I think he is fantastic. The sky is the limit for him. I just do think holistically as a wide receiver, based on what I'm looking for, there are some areas where I really think he can improve. So, I mean, the thing is, this guy's a superstar. You don't need to hear it from me. You know the game. But Jaden Higgins is someone who I love to death. And let's talk about him. I do think he's very similar to Nico Collins in aspect, but Baylor. No one flips their hips on slants like this. He is so damn smooth. Not overly fast, but uses physicality well. He dodges press defenders extremely well. He threw a defender off of a hitch route. Could have caught a touchdown fade. Elite stop route. Altered his route beautifully. Athleticism really is showing up as a limiter to his potential, but the route running is insane. Dropped a catch in traffic on a double move. Doing a solid job blocking, and nothing insane, but it's still solid. Athleticism has improved noticeably as the game went on. Maybe he was just supposed to be reserved. Nasty release on his slot fade. Did not separate at top speed, though. Did not separate at top speed. It's very capped. So his top speed is very capped. Another contested catch drop on a slot fade. I don't know what's going on. Slipped, but picked himself up and very quick. Picked himself up very quickly on a stop route. Ended up getting a big catch. So with Higgins, there's a lot of love to have there. I mean, he is super duper reliable, best route runner in the class. I'm super excited to see what he does in the NFL. Tedro McMillan's my wide receiver too, and you're like, what? Just wait, brothers. Just wait. Talk about his game versus UCF. Versus top end corners, because I love the UCF corners to death. Flips hips well on a 45-degree angle, not very sharp bend. I don't know why he moves like a giraffe. So I forgot I put the comparison there. I thought I deleted that shit. All right, whatever. Clean release off the line, inconsistent, but will adjust his route to play to benefit the play, which is super duper key. Not a great blocker. These 45-degree cuts have improved so much since last year. Good run after the catch vision for a big gain. His speed variation on routes and great stop route. Oh, okay. He has speed variation on routes, and he has a great stop route coming back for the ball, and then he ended up having good run after the catch up field. Not some kind of refined route runner, but he moves so well in space that it kind of defies route running. Contested catch touchdown, kind of runs into press, and he ended up being subbed out. But I mean, yeah, he kind of just moves like a giraffe. Super long strides, not a high accelerating guy. But after the catch, I thought he took the biggest step of all this year. I loved to see it. Yeah, we're here. Jack Besh, wide receiver 1. I did not expect to think Jack Besh was a top 20 receiver in this class when I started his grade. So keep that in mind. This is a player that I'm going to hold very near and dear to my heart. Let's talk about him. Smooth off the line, low-key great acceleration to start out. Ooh, good use of physicality on a hard cut route by throwing the defender by. So ended up actually posting that one right there. Evolved his route to help the QB. Just threw the cornerback by. Oh my lord, why did I not grade this guy sooner? So nuanced when flipping his hips on hard cuts. Nice swat of hands and stopping a deep route to help a quarterback. Oh, he ended up stopping his own deep route to go and help out his quarterback while they were scrambling. Definition of a playmaker. Not a great blocker overall. Good contested good catch in traffic. Varies his speed mid-route. I love that. Having the defenders kind of guess how fast you're going to be sometimes is going to be an asset over a liability. Nice adjustment for a back shoulder pass over the middle, flashing both outside and inside releases. Stiffy post grab. He's more stiff after the catch. Really solid run after the catch though so far. Number 7 on TCU flashes. He is very good. He's a willing blocker, even if he is not overly useful. Catch and traffic touchdown. 45-degree cuts are best paired off the line with a clean release. One thing I will say is he seems to have a lag accelerating out of his slant cuts, those 45-degree cuts. Stop routes are awesome, especially when paired with physicality. Bent his seam outwards to open up a throwing lane for the quarterback for a touchdown. I ended up posting that clip on X. Basically, he ended up drifting out to build the separation. I believe it was cover 3, but he ended up bowing it outwards to build that extra separation to create that throw lane, and actually ended up scoring the touchdown. It was ridiculous. But Jack Bech is, bottom line, the best combination of solid athleticism, but extremely high IQ and reliability through the roof. I mean, this guy is just pretty much everything that you're looking for. I mean, I didn't expect to love him the way I did, but I do. I really do. And I know that it's insane, but it is what it is. I really do think he's a tier above pretty much everyone else. He's the definition of reliability. You also talk about the fact that, you know, this guy literally was the savior of the Senior Bowl, winning the last second touchdown grab. So I love him to death. I think this guy is going to be absolutely phenomenal. Super excited for him, and I hope you guys did enjoy. You know, I tried to make this not 2 hours, so hopefully that ended up being a little bit shorter and a little bit more digestible. Thank you so much for watching. Love you. See you on the far side.